Hello, I'm Shrantla Holochak, the founder and CEO of Uma, an Ayurvedic beauty and wellness collection. This is the Uma Elements podcast. Each week, I'll be having a conversation with someone I greatly admire on the topics of Ayurveda, holistic healing, spiritual well-being, and alternative health. By sharing wisdom, together we will unlock a secret that, as ancient as they are, Ayurveda and other ancient modalities are as modern and relevant today as ever. Today's podcast guest, Ridhi Bahl, brings profound knowledge and insight to the realm of Vedic astrology and Vastu Shastra. Vastu Shastra is an ancient Vedic architectural system that harmoniously blends spatial design with nature, unlocking the true potential of living spaces. With a PhD in astrology and Vastu, and over 2 decades of intensive research and practical experience, Ridhi is a renowned and beloved expert who comes from a family of revered astrologers in India. Ridhi has also provided guidance on more than 5,000 Vastu enhancements encompassing commercial, industrial, and residential projects. In this episode of the Uma Ayurveda podcast, we embark on a journey to explore these ancient Vedic sciences with Ridhi and discover ways to integrate them into our lives to bring forth both positivity and enlightenment. Hi, Ridhi. It's such a pleasure to have you on this podcast. I'm such a fan of all the great work you've done and how you share it in such a wonderful visual fashion with people on your Instagram. So I've long wanted to connect. And, of course, someday I hope that maybe you can do one of those video previews for my little apartment. But while we wait for that to happen, I'd love to share your wisdom with all our listeners on this podcast. You are a Vastu expert and an astrologer with a world of study behind you. I know you've been doing this a really long time, and you come from a heritage of astrological and Vastu science. So without further ado, let's launch into this.
Thank you so much, Shrinkla, for having me here. And Vastu and astrology both are wonderful guiding sciences, right? I would like to tell one thing to the listeners here. Vastu and astrology, it is no magic, but then it is a guiding force. And see, life is all about taking the right decisions at the right time. And here, these sciences works wonder. It happens with all of us, when we say, oh, I did not know about this. Oh, had somebody guided me way back then, I could have done something better, or I could have done this, which would have been better. So, this confusion can be very well cleared with this science.
And I love that framing, and especially because, so many leaders will tell you that the most important thing in life is decision making. Success in work is all about decision making. So the idea of framing this in the way of this is something that illuminates your path to faster and better decision making can feel so empowering. And this might be as good of a time to jump in and clarify to some of our listeners who may not be familiar with what Vastu is. For lack of a better term, it is basically Feng Shui that is informed by the Vedic system in India. It is a guiding force to organize your home, your spaces, your office for the optimal flow of energy. And I don't know why I'm talking about this because I've got an expert on the call with me. So over to you, Ridhi. What are the origins of Vastu, this science that I liken to Feng Shui, just because I think more people in the West have heard about Feng Shui?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so Shrinkla, how Vastu operates. Firstly, let me tell you, Vastu has nothing to do with, being auspicious, inauspicious. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with countries. It has nothing to do with race, color, anything. Vastu works on the simple principle of 5 elements. Now, what are these 5 elements? I'm sure you all must have heard of it, but still, these 5 elements are water, air, fire, earth, and sky. Everything on this planet, be it you, me, the trees, the plants, the animals, everything is made up of these 5 elements. And after we are no longer part of the earth, we again get mixed in these 5 elements only. So these 5 elements forms the component of the human body, not just the human body, as I said, of everything that is existing on this earth. So, like say, for example, we humans, we have 72% water in us, right? Whenever there is an imbalance, say the 72% water, if it becomes 80%, right? I tend to fall sick. What is the term for that? They say there's a water retention in your body. That means your body is retaining water. It's holding on to water. You feel bloated. You feel you feel lethargic. All this is because the water content in your body increases. Whenever this water becomes less, whenever the 72% becomes say 60% or even 70%, you tend to fall sick. What does it leads to? It leads to dehydration, it leads to weakness, the water content is less. So, like, there has to be an adequate balance of water in our body. It just doesn't apply only to water, but also to other elements like fire, like earth, like sky, like air. If there is a imbalance of these elements in our body, we tend to fall sick. And that is where, Ayurveda comes into scene. Kapha, Vata, and Pitta, if you've heard of these 3 terms, which forms the basis of Ayurveda. So Kapha is basically water, Vata is basically air, Pitta is basically fire. So whenever there is a balance of any of these elements, we tend to fall sick. Now, the same principle applies to a structure, be it your house, be it your office, be it your any commercial entity. Whenever there is a balance of any of these elements, it leads to problems, and that is what we call that there is an imbalance of Vastu. Now, talking about Feng Shui, see, Vastu was written as a, that's why I explained you all these 5 elements. Vastu was written keeping these 5 elements balance in mind. Plus, Vastu works on the principle of movement of sun. Sun rises in the east, sun sets in the west, travels via south. That is for the northern hemisphere. Whereas in the southern hemisphere, the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, but travels via north. So the Vastu principles become a little different for the southern hemisphere and becomes different for the northern hemisphere, which is purely on the movement of sun. That's it. So see how logical it is. Now, Feng Shui was written keeping the Chinese climatic conditions in mind because it originated from China. And Feng Shui has been working more on symbols rather than working on the balances of these elements. What little knowledge of Feng Shui that I have, see in Feng Shui, they say, you should place a laughing Buddha, you should, place a tortoise, these are symbols that they place, which through these symbols, they say that, we are balancing. And these symbols, it has been found that have an impact on a subconscious mind. So say in your office table, you have a laughing Buddha. So you're spending a good amount of time on the office. So you're irritated. But moment you look at the laughing Buddha smiling at you, you also, get in a good mood. Right? So, Shrinkla, since I am doing Vastu for many, many years now, and I hold a degree I hold a PhD degree in Vastu, and I've been part of a lot of researches in Vastu. What I can say, the depth and the logic with Vastu, which with Vastu comes, there is no other science closer to it. And we have seen so many, cases where we applied these principles and people have got extremely positive results.
Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, and I think our listeners would know that. But of course, I wholeheartedly agree with this framing and my personal love for all our Vedic sciences is both evangelized by personal experience as well as from everything I have seen experts and those near to and dear to me be able to achieve with some of these guiding lights in their life. And speaking of these guiding lights, and I know you are a conduit of this guiding light, Ridhi, by all the amazing work you do with your clients. Tell me a little bit about how working with you might look like to someone who might be uninitiated in the principles of Vastu.
Shrinkla, Vastu was written some thousands years back. People say it was written some 5,000 years back. I don't know. We've not been able to date it. Now a new theory has come which says it goes back to say maybe more than 10,000 years back. So see, now this, what I'm explaining you right now also will explain that how logical it is. So see, since the earth was created, since life came, these 5 elements have always been a part of the system. And they will be there till the earth exists, right? So Vastu, which was written some 1,000 years back, is valid even now and will be valid till the earth is there. Like I said, these 5 elements will always be there. Whenever any of the element goes missing, life will stop. There will be no life, right?
Totally makes sense to
Now,
me. Yeah.
yeah, right. So now talking about the practicality or the applicability of Vastu. So what I was trying to say is that see, these principles which were written thousands of years back are applicable, 100% applicable now also. But what is the difference now and way back then? It is the way we have been living, the way the structures are being made now and what they were made. Forget 1,000 years back, just look at 20 years back from now. The way we were living, the way the structures were built, the way the family size would be, it was very different then and it is very different now, right? But those principles of Vastu, they still remain the same. Now see, like I told you about these 5 elements, each element is linked with certain attributes. Although it might be a little technical to the listeners who are not at all aware of Vastu, but I'll just try to make it simple.
We like technical. Lay it on us.
Okay. So I'll just try to make it simple so that people can understand. So see, like I'll give an example of the northern hemisphere. So sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and travels via south, right? During the day, from 12 noon till 2 p.m., the sun is in the southeast direction. That is the hottest time of the day, right? That zone in astrology, in Vastu, we call as Agni Kon, means the fire zone. It is the fire element. Why? Because of the heat prevalent in that direction. That is why it is called as heat zone. It is called as Agni Kon, fire zone. Where is fire in the house? Live fire in the house is in the kitchen. So if you're building a new house and you're making your kitchen in the southeast, that means you're aligning your structure with the nature, right? As I said,
Makes
there
sense.
is sun in the south. There is no sun in the north. This I'm talking in context with the northern hemisphere. There is no sun in the north. So therefore, north zones are cooler zones. They are called as water. They are the zones which are governed by water element. So having a swimming pool in the north directions will do good to the inmates of that particular structure. Why? Because you're aligning your structure with the earth, with the elements. Now just reverse the whole thing. You get your kitchen in the north and you get a swimming pool in the south. What will happen? It will disturb the whole ecosystem. And certainly the inmates staying there, you using that particular property as your office or as your house, you will have the impact. Now, what will the impact? What do I mean? You will have the impact. So see, every zone or when I say zone, I mean directions. So I'll just give you a little brief of Vastu. We have 4 basic directions, which everybody is aware of: north, east, south, and west.
Yeah.
But in Vastu, we divide these 4 directions into 8 sub-directions. Further, we divide these 8 directions into 16 directions. So every 22.5 degree makes one direction. So when I'm using this word zone, I mean direction, right? Now, each 16 directions, each direction has a certain attribute. That attribute has a direct relation with our lives. Say, for example, north, northeast, north of northeast, the direction which is coming between north and northeast. This is the direction we link with health and immunity. Like northeast is the direction we link with mental clarity. That is why in Vastu it is said that you should have a temple or a prayer room or sit and do meditation in the northeast. Why? Because what do we do when we pray, or what do we do when we meditate? We focus. And when we focus, we get mental clarity. And that is why northeast direction is linked with mental clarity. And that is why it is said, if you have your prayer room there, it will be better because it will help you in focusing. Now, suppose you don't have your prayer room there. That's okay, perfectly fine. But if you have a room or an area or a corner there where you sit and work, or where you sit and do your meditation, it will help you in focusing in whatever you are doing in life. So, like I've given an example of one direction, there are 16 directions. Each direction has its attribute, and that each direction contributes, or has an impact on the inmates of that particular property. This is how Vastu works.
Super, super helpful. Ridhi, at peril of, belaboring the earlier point around a consultation, I would love to sort of figure out with you that in many cases, the practical reality of actually building a new house or breaking down structures can be pretty challenging. And especially in these times, I think all of us are struggling with any sort of construction in our home. In a situation where a structure already exists, how do you go in and help someone with finding the best way for energy flow?
Okay, that's a very interesting question and a very, very important question, Shrinkla. Because see, you build a house once in a lifetime. And nowadays with a lifestyle, that is also not possible. We don't have the time and energy to, build a house. And most of us are living in apartments, be it, in the West or in the East,
True.
Everywhere, people are living in apartments, right? And these apartments are already ready to move in, and I believe me, Shrinkla, now this is an inside, secret I'm sharing with you. Most of the builders, most of the real estate people do, consider Vastu and make the apartments. But most of them don't. I like the sound of that. But most of them don't do also. Now, what happens in that case with a layman? Now, suppose, you are buying a new apartment and you're moving in. And you want Ridhi, you come to me, Ridhi, I want everything as per Vastu to be perfect. Now, see, there are simple and doable remedies by which we can align the structure or make it Vastu compliant, right? It's not necessary always that one has to, if it's a Vastu, if particular place requires some Vastu rectification, that you have to make some structural change. It's not always so, right? Depends from case to case, but in 90% of the cases, rather I would say 95% of the cases, with my own experience, I have not done any structural change. And I have dealt with properties which are in acres, which are massive, big, when it comes to commercial establishments or townships and all that, right? And let me tell you one thing, Shrinkla, Vastu principles are the same, whether it is a small size cabin, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a shopping mall or a township. The principles are the same. Why? Because the elements are the same. So in Vastu, when we try to, balance a particular property or make it Vastu compliant, it's not always that we have to make structural changes. There are simple and doable remedies by which we can align or make a particular place Vastu compliant. Now, what do I mean by Vastu compliant, as I'm again and again using this term? It means, get balancing all the elements so that people get the benefit of all the elements, right? So when this balancing comes, we can do it with colors, we can do it with metals, we can do it simply by placement of furniture or placement of other stuff in the house.
Very cool. And Ridhi, in terms of starting out, someone might want to explore a little bit on their own before they reach out to you, just because some of us might be very, very new to this science. Do you recommend any self-study in Vastu? And if you do, what are some of the resources one should look at?
To be very honest, Shrinkla, it's like, saying that, I am having some stomach ailment, and before going to the doctor, do I need to study something myself? Well, no, you don't need to, right? It's
Fair enough.
always better. Like, even doctors say, like today morning only, my mom went to a doctor, and how elderly people are. She was not well from past 3 days, and she was doing her self medication, and situation became really bad. And the first thing the doctor shouted at her was that, why did you have to do self medication, right? So when there are specialists available, so same thing applies with Vastu also, that when there are specialists available, it's always better that you go to a specialist and seek their help. Nowadays there is so much information, and you see YouTube, you see Instagram, you see Twitter, everybody's pouring in information, and that rather confuses a person. So it's always better that you go to specific specialist and seek his or her advice and then proceed further.
Okay. Fair, and I totally see your point. Now, the second challenge that might present itself, Riddhi, is finding a good practitioner. Because I find that for one great practitioner, there are always 10 not so great ones. So, what should one look for when trying to find a good practitioner to work with?
Okay, this is a very, very important question, Shrinkla, and a lot of people ask me this question. And even, when it comes to me for choosing a practitioner, what do we do nowadays? As I said, now here social media comes into scene, that you can do a little research about the person. Educational background or qualification is very important in this field. Since I'm from this field from past 20 years, and I see, most of the practitioners, they don't have a formal degree or a formal qualification. They it's like half baked knowledge, picked up from here, picked up from there, read some books, saw some TV show. Or today morning only I was talking to this girl, and she was really very scared and confused, and she said, I saw a video on YouTube, and that gentleman said this. Oh, is it going to happen with me also like this? I'll forward you that video. So I told her, I said, see, that's not the right way of doing it, right? You go to go to a person, you do your research on what is the level of knowledge of that person. Don't take everything that person is saying on YouTube or it's written in an article, right? That's very generic. Even I've been writing articles, even I have been posting videos on YouTube, but then they are very generic. Whereas these ancient Vedic sciences, they're very individual specific, right? What your house is, Shankla, is your house. Your neighbor's house will not be the same. Maybe structure is same, but the interiors will be different. The people living in it will be different. The challenges these people might be facing will be different. So for that, you need to really do a good research of person who's qualified, who has a good background in terms of experience, and then go to that person.
Makes sense. And just to summarize, I do know that social media can serve as a good research platform to see if the energy and the vibe of the person seems right for you, but also the importance of formal education, expertise, and longevity of experience really matters in these things. And I wholeheartedly agree. There's so much to learn, and I love people who spend the time in self-study and constantly evolve. I think on a personal conversation, you also told me about the importance of continuing to learn and grow. And I think that's something that stuck with me in a practitioner I would want to work
Yeah,
with.
one thing I would like to see here, Shrinkla, I'm sorry I'm cutting you through.
No,
Like,
please
since you
do.
raised this point, yeah, since you raised this point of how to find a good practitioner. So when you meet somebody, this incident I'm telling you from my personal experience, because people come to me and give me this feedback that when they approach somebody for Vastu or for astrology, most of the people behave very greedy. They ask for big amount of money, or they advise you with certain stones or some baseless stupid remedies which are very expensive. So I would say, please don't fall trap to such people. See, as I explained you, this is a science. Nobody can change your destiny. These are guiding sciences. By bringing about these changes, life becomes better. It's not that your problems are solved and solved overnight. It's no magic, but it is certainly logic. So please don't fall trap to people who are asking for big amount of money or who are giving you baseless remedies.
Makes sense. Sage words to live by. And in terms of consultation, I would love if you're able to share one or two shining examples or stories where you've seen Vastu really shine profoundly in someone's well-being, life, prosperity, so many things that life throws at us, and how Vastu may have helped someone, for instance, in their love life or relationships or health?
Well, yes. So there's this one incident. I remember this client of mine, and she was a young girl, maybe in her 30s, and she and her husband, they were going through a lot of financial trouble. And I went and they had a store, they had a garment store. And I went and I did Vastu. Things started becoming a little better in terms of they getting orders. All the things were picking at its own pace. There was, as I said, there was no magic. But then all of a sudden, this lady calls me one day and she says, Ridhi, I'm fed up of my husband. I can't stay with him. I'm going. I can't live with him. And I'd met both of them, and a nice couple, small kids, so I never wanted them to, part ways. And the reason she was giving me, I understood, it was frustration, it was financial struggles and all that. But I did tell her a simple remedy, and I told her, I said, please do this and just, allow me 40 days, just for 40 days, do this and, get back to me. And you won't believe me, Shrinkla, after 2 months, she calls me and she says, Ridhi, how foolish of me, so stupid of me. How could I think of something like this, And she did that remedy and they're living happy till now.
How wonderful,
Right?
how wonderful.
Yeah.
And this goes back to sort of, sometimes we just need that light, that push, because we are pushed in our lives professionally, personally, circumstantially, and it can seem like it's the end of the road sometimes. So that positive sort of pivot can be so meaningful when it comes at the right time, when you feel completely down and out. And staying on sort of remedies, as well as, for lack of a better word, tips, are there universal tips that you might like? For instance, within Ayurveda, of course, everything is done using doshic balances. Very often it's a customized plan based on your prakriti, which is your dosha that you were born with, as well as your vikriti in terms of what that might be disturbed. However, there are a few things that seem to work for everyone, sort of waking up and splashing your face with cool water, or things like dry brushing, drinking warm water in the morning. Similar to that paradigm in Ayurveda, are there things within Vastu that you tend to recommend to everyone?
Okay, so since you're getting Ayurveda, you know what? Ayurveda and Vastu, they go hand in hand. When we study Vastu, when I was doing the Vastu course, there was a paper on Ayurveda also. So, when we do medical Vastu, when we try to see, certain people in a particular household, in a particular structure are facing certain health issues, there where, what you mentioned about these dosha, balancing of these doshas through the directions that comes. So, Ayurveda and Vastu play a very important role. And, if applied together, it can really bring, a lot of wonderful changes in a person's life. So now talking about, certain tips. So see, as I said, Vastu, astrology, Ayurveda, again, they're individual specific, certainly, right? Everybody has, their own house or has a particular body structure or a particular dosha. But then, yes, talking about generic Vastu tips. So you have to remember always one thing, which I'm repeating again and again, is the 5 elements: air, water, fire, earth, sky, and the movement of sun. So like east is a very important direction because it's the direction for rising sun. So if you're buying an apartment or moving to a new place, just make sure that in the east direction there is a window or there is a door or there is some source where natural light can come in, because natural, especially the sunlight, plays a very important role when it comes to our health, be it vitamin D, be it our mood swings. It has been researched that people who are working constantly under artificial light, they are more prone to depression. So if you expose yourself to natural light, sunlight, it really uplifts your mood. So something like this needs to be done. Then, as I said, there are directions which are hot directions, like southeast, southeast, south. These are hot directions. So if during the daytime you should not spend more time in the south, you should be more in the north, right? Because north is cooler direction. But then again, Shrinkla, it depends on country to country. Also, it depends on the climatic condition. It also depends on the movement of the sun also. So there are a lot of factors which in totality contributes, like south is the zone for confidence. So if you feel little inconfident, you sit in the south direction, you'll feel much more confident. Like I said, northeast is the direction for mental clarity. So if you're confused, you need more focus in life, you should spend more time in northeast, right? So like these are few small points that I remembered now, and which I would want people to follow. Why I'm telling so much about northeast, because everything is a mind game. The more clearer you are mentally, the better it is in life.
Thank you for sharing that. And staying on this topic, Ridhi, I know that placement of plants, certain plants, placement of mirrors, these are some of the things that are also considered important in Vastu to pay attention to. Any thoughts or advice for some of these structural, well, non-structural, but these objects within one space?
Yeah. So see, mirror, we associate mirrors with water element. Why? Because see, in olden times when there were no mirrors practically, how would people look at themselves, or how would they would view themselves? It was at a water body, say a river or a lake, they would go and see themselves. So therefore, mirrors are associated with water element, right? So mirrors should ideally be in the north directions. As I said, north is a direction where there is no direct sun. So it's a cool direction, it's a water direction. So having mirrors again in the north direction, what are you doing? You're aligning your structure with the universe. So in the north, having mirrors is absolutely fine. Where you should not have mirrors is in the south directions. Why? Because mirror is water guided element, and south is fire zones. So getting fire and water together will create an imbalance, because these are two opposite elements to each other. Then comes plants we associate with air element. So east direction is the direction for air. Having plants in the east, having plants in the south and the north is also good. You should not have plants in the southwest or in the west direction. Now comes the question, why? As I told you about the movement of sun, the sun sets in the west, right? The sunlight by the time the sun sets, the rays of the sun has a lot of ultraviolet rays which are harmful. So if you have plants in that direction, it will not do good to the plants. It is advisable to have it in the east. Why? Because east is the direction for rising sun. Then we say you should have big trees or big plants in the south or southeast. Why? Because southeast is the direction where you get maximum sunlight. In the north directions, it is advised that you should have herbs or shrubs, or you should have your kitchen garden in the north direction. Why? Because these herbs and shrubs, they don't need that much of direct sunlight. They do need light, but not that much of direct sunlight. That is why they should be in the north. So see, Shrinkla, everything here is connected with the directions.
Science and logic. Love it.
Yes, absolutely. Whatever I said today and whatever Vastu has, there's nothing which is illogical.
Totally agree. One of the things that Uma really focuses on is health as well as mental health, remaining in balance. Any Vastu related tips for ensuring that people they love in their household remain healthy mentally, physically? Anything to share from within that paradigm?
Well, yes. See, when we are smaller, we all are very fond of those ghost stories, or those haunted stories. Oh, this place is haunted, or this particular place, don't go there, it is haunted. You'll find a ghost there. What is a haunted place? As per Vastu, a haunted place is a place where these elements are majorly disturbed. So, if you have ever been to a so-called haunted place, what will be there? The water will be stagnant, it will be stinking. there'll be no natural light. All the doors and windows will be closed. There'll be no flow of, air, natural air. Moment, you clean up that place, you open up that place, natural light comes in, sunlight comes in, there's a flow of water, that place becomes absolutely fine. It's no longer haunted, right? So in any household, in any structure, if you want, the inmates to be happy, healthy, successful, make sure that there is a lot of natural light coming in, there is airflow, there is water which is flowing. There should not be stagnant water. What I'm trying to say is that there has to be educate, balance, and there has to be, all the elements should be there, and these elements should be balanced. If there is an imbalance of any of these elements, then it leads to problem. Like, I'll give you an example, Shrankla. I went to this particular house, and again, there's this couple was, in bad terms with each other. They were not talking, or they were constantly arguing. And this house had big mirrors all through, be it in the living room, be in the bedroom, be it in the kids' room, mirrors all through. Now, mirror is water element, as I guided. Now, excess of mirror, what is excess of mirror? What is it going? It was leading to excess emotions, right? When emotions are in excess, what happens? We become too weak, or we become fickle minded, or we tend to take decisions which are more governed by our emotions. We tend to forget logic, and that is exactly what is happening with that couple. So I asked them to remove all the mirrors, just keeping one or two, and the problems eventually slowly got solved. So what I'm trying to say is, having an excess of any element in the house, that is also wrong. Having element which is not at all present there, that is also. So there has to be educate balance. You should have plants also, you should have natural light also, you should have a source of water body also, right? So this is how you can balance and make your life happy and healthy.
Good reminder of the importance of balance in practically every sphere of our lives.
Absolutely.
Ridhi, on your incredible resume, I also know that you have expertise around astrology. Would you mind sharing with us how astrology and Vastu play together?
Well, yes, astrology is a wonderful science. Astrology again is very individual specific. When we read a chart, when we make a chart, we need the date of birth, the time of birth, and the place of birth of an individual. Your date of birth, your time of birth is yours only. Twins who are born to the same parents, born at the same time, same place, but still have different destinies. So see how accurate astrology is. In twins, there is, at times there is a difference of maybe barely few seconds, but those few seconds also may create a huge impact in your life. That is why Indian Vedic astrology, which was written some 1,000 years back, is valid till now, and it has such a big following, and people have seen, being benefited immensely by this. So coming to astrology and Vastu, it's not just astrology and Vastu. See, astrology, Vastu, Ayurveda, yoga, all of them are connected with each other, and all of them aim at human wellness. They aim at you having a healthy and a better life. So astrology also is a guiding science, See, whatever has to happen will happen. But if you know in advance, this is going to happen, you can, prepare yourself, or, tackle with those things in a better way. It's like, Shrinka, it's like a GPS. So suppose, you have to cover a distance of, say, maybe 100 kilometers. It might take you 2 hours. If if taking a particular route will save time, you'll reach on time, it will be better. Rather than, you getting stuck in a jam or something, there's some problem while on the way. If you get to know this in advance, don't you think you will be prepared better? So here, astrology is again, is a wonderful guiding science, and it certainly has a linkage and has a connection with Vastu. So when we do Vastu, we do consider the astrological aspect of the inmates of that house also, because that also leads to or helps us in providing them solutions.
Ridhi, that makes so much sense. Thank you. And I know I've taken up a bunch of your time, but I must ask before I let you go, in the case that someone wanted to work with you and is not geographically close to you, I know you've done remote things with people in the past. How does that all work? How do you recommend someone reach out to you if they wanted to work with you to improve the energy in their home?
Okay, so Shrinka, for Vastu specifically, I need the floor plan. That is the layout of the particular structure. So, like I said, it can be your residence, it can be your commercial entity, or a manufacturing unit, whatever it is for which you want to check your energies or for which you want your Vastu. I need is the floor plan in the PDF form. You may share it. Nowadays, see, technology is a big boon. We all can connect with each other sitting in any part of the world. So you may share that with me, and then then I can reach out, through video calls or through Zoom calls or whatever way. Certainly we can connect, and then I can take it forward. I can help you. I can guide you, and we can certainly do Vastu. And like I travel a lot. I travel a lot all across the world. Like last month, I was in South Africa for Vastu. I've traveled to Australia, Europe, so I do travel, so I'm open to that also. Depends, yeah. But then certainly with, as I said, online, we can certainly connect online and I can provide you with the solutions.
Wonderful. I am sure many of us are excited at that prospect. And thank you again for sharing all this incredible insight with us, Ridhi. I can't thank you enough. This has been so detailed and in depth, but is there anything that we missed in our conversation that you'd like to touch on before I let you go?
Okay, so firstly, let me also thank you because you created this opportunity where you reached out and we could create something like this, and I'm sure the listeners would be benefited out of it. They'll get the correct picture of what Vastu is or what astrology is and how does it works and how they can implement in their life and bring about changes. So a special thanks to you, Shankla, for doing it of the good work. Okay, so I think we have covered most of the things, Shankla. Only like one little thing that I will say, would like to say is that, see, it's no magic, but then yes, certainly it's logical, it's backed by science. And like we in the conversation, you did bring up this point, I would repeat it again. Connect with the right person, and believe me, these sciences can bring about a lot of changes in an individual's life. And when I say a lot of changes, I mean a lot of positive changes in an individual's life.
Thank you again for, of course, re-clarifying and re-emphasizing that, and for being with us. I'm sure there are more amazing things we will do together for our audiences. But for now, Ridhi, I will sadly let you go, and more to come. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Shankla. Thanks to all the listeners. Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely. Talk soon. You can learn more about Ridhi and her work at ridhibahl.com. That's RIDHIBAHL.com. You can also follow her on Instagram at Astrologer Ridhi Bahl for tips on astrology and Vastu. As we conclude this episode, we invite you to delve deeper into the world of Ayurveda with Uma. Please subscribe to the Uma Ayurveda podcast to continue this transformative journey with our series of conversations that we hope you'll find enlightening. Visit umaoils.com, that is umaoils.com, for an even more immersive experience, exploring not only our luxury Ayurveda products, but also an array of inspired wellness insight and lifestyle tips.